Proverbs chapter 20, verse 5 states that the intentions of a man's heart are deep waters, but a man of understanding draws them out. My own personal golden rule of counseling is based on this verse. It is to depend on the Holy Spirit to become a counselor of understanding who is able to draw out the intentions, springing forth from the feelings, beliefs, and attitudes of a client's heart in a manner that is helpful to him or her. To help me apply this rule, I hope to model the female counselor's humble and curious postures who I read about in chapter 10. Miss Ray and Miss Taylor said that they couldn't just assume what their clients' lives were like, but instead they had to let the clients lead them into their world by listening to them. A few verses that support social justice are when Jesus says, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them," in Matthew 19:14. He doesn't want anything to stop the small and weak of having full access to himself. To me, his exclamation is the perfect expression of social justice advocacy because he wants this vulnerable population in his society to have full access to himself, the eternal holy resource. Another passage which displays social justice being practiced in Jewish society is set in the agricultural context of letting the poor pick up fallen grain during harvest. In Ruth chapter 2, Ruth has gleaned some fallen grain from a field for herself and Naomi. But when Boaz makes her acquaintance, he tells her to gather in a different field along with his female servants and informs her that he has ordered his young men not to touch her. Later on, he tells his young men, "Let her even gather grain from among the bundles, and don't humiliate her. Pull out some stalks from the bundles for her and leave them for her to gather. Don't rebuke her." I think the example of Boaz can inspire modern-day social justice activists because he uses his position of influence to remove barriers existing between Ruth and the basic resource of food, while he and Ruth remain in different gender, racial, and socioeconomic groups. He removes the physical barrier of great energy needed to collect grain from vast fields by allowing her to collect from bundles. He also curtails the probable internal barrier of fear by informing her that he has commanded the young men not to touch her. He also privately seeks to diminish another possible internal barrier of shame by instructing his young men not to humiliate or rebuke her. His actions point to the fair supposition that he was thoroughly considering what it might be like to be Ruth. I'd like to take a step towards working for social justice in my community by serving the children of the severely mentally ill who have barriers to educational, social, and enrichment activities, which many other children with healthy parents enjoy. I'd like to begin by researching.